Do you want to save yourself and your sanity in the future and spot the narcissistic leaders in the job interview? Some job interviews don't test your skills. They actually test how quickly you ignore the red flags. Welcome back to Poison Break, Toxic Tales at Work. We often talk about toxic colleagues, toxic bosses, toxic environments, but we rarely talk about the moment where it actually starts, the interview. And more importantly, what happens when the interviewer is the red flag. After my personal toxic workplace experience, I had a job interview that on paper looked promising, but the experience itself was completely off. I will tell you about this personal story before I go into detail, before I go into the red flags, and how you can spot the narcissists among the leaders or, team leads or whoever is leading the interview. So I was actually looking really forward to that interview because I was really interested in that place and in working there. But it started with a delay, about 15 to 20 minutes, which was quite a long time, but there was another candidate still being interviewed, which is not ideal, but I thought, okay, that happens. But from the moment the interview began, something felt really wrong. The energy was really rushed and hectic and almost chaotic. Or not almost chaotic, it was really chaotic, to be honest. Instead of asking about my experience, my motivation, or who I am as a person, instead of getting to know me, the interviewer, who was the HR leader, talked almost exclusively about himself, his achievements, his impact, how successful he is, what kind of network he has, and how much value he brings wherever he goes, and all about himself. And he also had that typical smirk on his face. If you've seen it, you probably know exactly what I mean. It's this typical smirk you can just see on, usually it's narcissistic leaders, colleagues, whatever, just people you work with. They have that smirk, and you kind of notice that in those people when you have worked with them or when you have experienced them. And he definitely had that smirk on his face. At some point, he even told me that we have very similar career paths, or there are similarities in our career paths, without really knowing mine, or without really asking me anything about my background. And obviously he saw my CV, but he didn't ask me about it at this point. He put words in my mouth. He made assumptions. He didn't really ask. He was not interested in my person. Like, he was so busy with talking about himself and what he brought to the table that it almost felt like he was selling the job to me and selling himself as a person to me. And it was like his stage. So it was a very exhausting, one-sided interview where I felt really confused. In the second round, which I honestly only went to because I was so curious to see how much I learned from my former experience, because I already spotted his behavior, but I was also curious about the situation there and, the colleagues I would work with. Obviously, at this point, I've already kind of decided to not do that, but I was just curious and I wanted to see. Kind of regretted it, to be honest, at some point, because I just knew that I didn't want to work there, and I had a very weird feeling, but I kind of wanted to explore that. Within the team, there was such a weird tension I could feel as well. Everything seemed like something was being sold to me, and it was really fishy, and I felt so drained afterwards, which is such a red flag, actually. And then very quickly, I got an offer. A surprisingly high one considering the role, but it came with pressure and a sense of extreme urgency, almost like decide now, you have to decide now. I remember he said, well, you have to he didn't say it directly like that, but we need a decision pretty quickly because you need to start working within this month and whatever. So he told this one girl working there that she should prepare like a draft of a contract for me already, which is so weird. It was very spontaneously and very rushed, and she was also very confused about it, and everything was so weird. Yeah, I just said, well, I'm going to think about it. I also have other interviews and I need some time to decide. Like, I cannot decide on the spot. And he said, well, yeah, just get back to us. And I said, well, yeah, I can, I have another interview. I had another interview that same week. I think it was, the end of the week. In that week I had the interview. And like on a Friday, I had the other interview and I said, I cannot give you like a decision by, I already knew that I don't want to work there. But still I said, I kind of wanted to say like, don't pressure me, I'm going to think about it. And I said, I'm going to get back to you the week after, like on Monday. And then when we were finished with the second round, we said our goodbyes. He basically said, yeah, so you get back to me on Friday. And I said, no, like I said, and I think I even mentioned it like 2 times or even more, that I cannot get back to them at the end of the week. It was just a very weird situation. And I remember he sent me an email afterwards a few days later being like, yeah, we need a decision and call me now and stuff like that. So much pressure. It was insane. So before we go deeper, I want to be clear about one thing. This is not about diagnosing someone as a narcissist. In psychology, especially in personality psychology, narcissism is seen as a spectrum. That means people can show narcissistic traits without having a clinical condition like narcissistic personality disorder. So what we're really talking about here are patterns. Because a single behavior can be stress or a bad day or time pressure, whatever. But then when multiple signals show up together, dominance, lack of interest, self-promotion, and pressure, that's when it stops being a coincidence. It starts being a preview. And moments like this are very easy to misinterpret. You might think, wow, they really like me. This is a great opportunity. I should feel so lucky, like they want to hire me on the spot. But here's the thing, sometimes it's not about you at all. So let's break down the red flags. Things you should definitely look out for when you are in an interview or in the general process, when it feels like a performance, not a conversation. A healthy interview is a two-way exchange. If someone dominates the conversation and turns it into a stage for self-promotion, that's not confidence, that's imbalance and a big red flag instantly. One of the most important in my opinion. I am conducting interviews as well, and I can tell you that it is not normal to talk so much about yourself as a recruiter, especially not if you're not being asked. So that is something you should definitely look out for if someone is performing in a way, or it just makes you feel like this person is on a stage or is trying to sell you something or is just talking about his or her achievements and how great they are. Very, very, very problematic. The second one I want to mention is no real interest in you. And you can feel that. If they don't ask meaningful questions about your experience, your motivation, your values, if you don't feel like they really want to get to know you, they're not evaluating you. What really happens is that they're projecting onto you. And that often means that you're being hired to fit their narrative, not to be yourself. Because that's most important to them, that you fit their narrative. It's not about you. The third one is artificial similarity. This is also something I talk about in my episode about red flags when it comes to narcissistic managers, when I talk about the inappropriate way of bonding. So statements like, we're very similar, or I already know how you think, or yeah, we just have so many, like there are so many similarities in what we've been doing or in the way we handle things, or yes, this is exactly how I'm doing it, or we seem to be on the same page. Like when it's a bit unnatural, or it feels unnatural, it feels very extreme, because at the end of the day, they don't really know you yet. So how can they say that you're so similar, or that you have so much in common? And you don't do that when you're professional, and especially not in the way that they do it. So if they do that, if they make those statements without evidence, it's a subtle control tactic. It creates a quick pseudo connection, but it completely skips authenticity, completely skips it. The next one I want to mention is there can be, like in my case, urgency and pressure. A fast offer can feel flattering. You're thinking, oh my God, they really want me. They think that I'm the perfect candidate, and I won against other candidates, and they are, impressed and would give me the highest salary or whatever, or, benefits, you name it. But combined with pressure, it's such a red flag. Healthy organizations give you space to decide. Toxic ones rush you before you can think twice. They rush you so that you don't even have enough time to think about the weird, confusing feeling the interview may have given you. That's the thing. Definitely look out for being pressured, or if they deliver a sort of urgency, and if they're like, oh, you need to start working by this day because otherwise it won't be possible, whatever. If they pressure you, if there's an urgency, an extreme urgency, it can be a red flag for sure. Then there is charm mixed with chaos. This combination is powerful. Big personality, strong presence, impressive claims, but underneath there is disorganization, lack of structure, and no real listening. And that is not leadership. It is not. That's volatility. And definitely pay attention to the chaos and the confusion you might feel. Sometimes it's hard to see, especially in interview situations and meeting new people when you're nervous anyway, But the confusion is a big red flag, and the reaction of your body, the gut feeling, definitely listen to it when something feels off, because most definitely it is. So if you ever leave an interview feeling confused or rushed, not really seen, like it's empty, but at the same time a lot of things happened, and somehow you're still impressed, that's your signal. Not every opportunity is a good opportunity, and not every confident leader is a safe one. Sometimes they only seem to be confident. Job interviews go both ways. You're not just being evaluated, you're evaluating them as well, and it's not a one-way street. In this case, the biggest act of self-respect is walking away, and even when the job offer looks good or perfect, maybe even. If you have doubts, they don't come from nowhere. Trust that feeling. It's there for a reason. Stay aware and don't ignore the red flags, no matter how shiny they look. I hope I was able to help some of you out there. I hope I was maybe able to save some of you out there from the experience of working in a toxic workplace again, because I know people are scared to land in a toxic workplace again. I was really scared to experience that again. And I was also I was just scared to not see the red flags maybe and kind of ignore them. And sometimes it's easy to not see them when you are desperate, for example, when you really need a job, when there is no other opportunity. And I really get that. I hope I could help you in a way, and I hope that you will be able to see those red flags a bit clearer maybe. And in case you have experienced that, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay sane, and until next time, bye bye.